Hold up 3 fingers. You know it's 3. You didn't count them, you just knew. The way you know red from blue, instantly and without effort. Now hold up 4. Then 5. Somewhere right around there the knowing slips, and a quiet little voice in your head starts to count. That stumble feels like nothing. A glitch. But the real answer is far stranger than a glitch, because that small break is a fault line running straight through your mind, and it marks the exact spot where your ancestors lived for 200,000 years. Your brain has 2 completely different ways of handling quantity. The first is ancient. The second is borrowed. And almost everything you think of as math is built on the borrowed one. Start with the ancient one. Scientists call it subitizing, from a Latin word that means to arrive suddenly. It's the thing that just happened when you glanced at 3 fingers. Up to about, sometimes 4, your brain hands you an exact amount with no counting involved at all. The answer is simply there. It arrives whole like a smell or a color. Past that line, everything changes. Look at a fistful of coins, or a flock of birds, or a crowd pouring out of a train, and your brain quietly stops giving you exact numbers. Instead, it gives you a feeling. More, fewer, about this many. This is your second system, and it doesn't trade in precision, it trades in rough comparison. Researchers call it the approximate number sense, and it is very, very old. Lions use a version of it to judge how many rivals are roaring in the dark. Fish use it to swim toward the bigger, safer shoal. Did you ever decide which checkout line was shorter without counting a single person? That was the same ancient tool, the one you share with creatures that have never seen a number in their lives. Here is the part that should stop you. You were born with both of these systems. Neither one had to be taught. In the early 1990s, a psychologist named Wynn ran an experiment that sounds impossible. Her subjects were 5-month-old babies. She showed each baby a single Mickey Mouse doll on a tiny stage, then raised a screen to hide it. Then, in plain view, a hand reached out and placed a second doll behind the screen. 1 doll plus 1 more. When the screen dropped away, sometimes there were 2 dolls, and sometimes, through a hidden trick, only 1. And the babies stared far longer at the wrong answer. They had no words, no schooling, no control over their own hands yet, and still, some buried part of them already understood that 1 and 1 should never leave you with 1. So you didn't invent your number sense. You inherited it. The real question is what exactly you inherited, and the answer is humbling, because what you inherited runs out almost exactly at 3. To feel what that is really like, you have to leave the modern world completely. And in the early 2000s, a handful of researchers did. Deep in the Brazilian Amazon lives a people called the Pirahã. A linguist named Daniel Everett spent years living among them, and he reported something that shook his entire field. Their language has no fixed words for exact numbers. None at all. The nearest terms mean roughly a small amount and a larger amount, and even those can slide depending on what is being talked about. There is no word for 7, no word for 4, by some accounts, not even a reliable word for 1. In 2004, a psychologist named Peter Gordon decided to test what that absence does to thought itself. He laid out a row of objects, batteries, and nuts and sticks, and asked Pirahã adults to simply match it, to line up the same number of items in a row of their own. With 1, 2, or 3 objects, they did it easily, every time, but as the rows grew longer, the matching quietly fell apart. 4 became shaky, 5, 6, 7, mostly guesses. Not because these people were slow. They were sharp, funny, capable, expert survivors of one of the most punishing environments on the planet. But without words to pin a number down, exact quantity beyond 3 simply melted into the great category of many. Sit inside that for a moment. A human being, completely modern, completely your equal, for whom the difference between 5 fish and 6 fish is genuinely not obvious. for whom the world arrives in the same shape your own two inborn systems hand it to you. 1, 2, 3, and then more. How much of what you call intelligence is really just the words you happen to own? Was this only one unusual group? It was not. A few hundred miles away lived the Munduruku, a research team led by the linguist Pierre Pica, working closely with the neuroscientist Stanislas Dehaene, studied how the Munduruku handle quantity. They do have number words, but only up to about 5, and they use them loosely, the way you might say a couple or a few. When the team tested them, the Munduruku were astonishing at approximation. Flash 2 large clouds of dots on a screen and ask which has more, and they answered just as accurately as university students in Paris. But ask for an exact count past 5, and this precision simply was not there. The approximate sense was flawless. The exact one had a ceiling, and the ceiling sat low. This is the picture that rises up out of all the research. The human animal comes preloaded with 2 tools for number. One is exact but tiny, and it runs dry at 3. The other is endless but blurry, able to compare thousands yet never to count them. And those 2 tools, together, are the entire mathematical inheritance your ancestors carried for the overwhelming majority of human time on Earth. So how did you get from there to here, from 1, 2, 3, many, all the way to mortgages and moon landings, and the exact number sitting on your tax return? You were handed a piece of technology, and the technology was words. This is the quiet revelation underneath the whole story. Exact numbers above 3 are not something your brain grows on its own. They are something your culture installs into you. The word 7 is a tool, a small verbal container built to hold an amount that your raw perception cannot. When a child learns to count, she is not uncovering a sense she was born with. She is being handed an invention, one assembled painstakingly over thousands of years, and slowly, effortfully, learning to think with it. The counting you now do without any thought at all is, underneath, the most thought-heavy thing about you. And an invention has to begin somewhere. Almost certainly, this one began with your own body. Look at your hand one more time. 5 fingers, which is exactly why so many of the world's number systems are built on 5, and 10 and 20. The hand was the first calculator. Before there were any symbols, there were fingers and toes and notches carved into bone. Archaeologists have found real objects, ancient animal bones scored with long, careful rows of deliberate marks, tens of thousands of years old, that may be among the oldest counting tools our species ever made. Picture the person who cut them. Someone, somewhere, needed to hold on to an amount too large to feel, and so they reached for something outside their own skull to carry it for them. That single move, putting a number somewhere outside yourself, is one of the most important things humans have ever done. It is the reason the cap at 3 did not trap your ancestor forever. A notch on a bone does not forget. A word once invented can be taught to a child, who teaches it to her own. The anthropologist Caleb Everett has argued that numbers themselves are a kind of invention that, once loose in the world, quietly rewired what humans were able to do. Because without exact number, look at everything that cannot exist. No clean trade of 17 goats for a field, no debt remembered across years, no calendar, no harvest planned for a precise day, no census, no tax, no city large enough that you cannot know every face. Whole civilizations are stacked on top of a tool your great-great ancestors did not have. Now feel how deep the old limit still runs, right under your modern life. Look at Roman numerals. 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes, and then 4 breaks the pattern entirely, because 3 is where the I gives out. Look at how many languages give special grammar to 1 and to 2, and sometimes to a few, and then lump every larger amount together as simply plural. Look at your own eyes on this very line, the marks for 1, 2, and 3 you take in at a single glance. The line for 3 is still the edge of the easy world. The The ancient system never actually left you. You just bolted a vast scaffolding on top of it and forgot the original was down there, and this is where it climbs back into your ordinary day. The next time a label says 2 for 1, or a screen flashes a discount, watch closely which numbers you truly feel and which ones you merely read. You feel buy one, get one free. You feel the gap between a few people in a room and a packed crowd. But the difference between $400 and $500? You do not feel that at all. You calculate it. That is not a flaw in you. That is a 200,000-year-old brain running borrowed software, letting the seams show through, which is the real reason a price ending in 99 still tugs at you, and why an enormous number on a screen can feel oddly weightless even when it absolutely should not. Have you ever signed a number you could not actually picture? Your sense of how much is a lot was never upgraded, only your vocabulary was. So the people who could not count past 3 were not primitive. They were not unfinished, lesser drafts of you. They were you, running the original equipment, the exact same equipment you still carry underneath every year of your schooling. Everything above 3 that feels automatic to you is a gift, passed down a long chain of human hands. A word invented around a fire, a finger raised in trade, a notch cut into bone by someone whose name is gone, handed from one mind to the next across 100,000 years, until it finally reached you and became so familiar that you mistook it for instinct. So hold up 3 fingers one last time. That instant, effortless knowing, with no counting at all, that is the real you. The ancient you. The one who was already here long before counting was ever dreamed up. Everything past those 3 fingers is the most human thing you will ever own, and not because you were born knowing it. Because somewhere far back along the line, your ancestors couldn't, and they refused to stop there.